Now I would like to invite to welcome speech Mykola Knyzhitsky. He has a lot of experience as media stakeholder, parliamentarian, and also represents some interest in Ukraine in the international level in different countries. Please, Mykola, for speech.
Не дуже довго мене попросили з коротким словом виступити. Власне, не буду займати багато вашого часу, але бачите, в який час і період ми живемо. Кожен день очікуємо якихось нових викликів, чи то від вірусів, чи то від гривні, чи то від економіки, чи то від агресії на кордоні. І в зв'язку з цим дуже часто не знаємо, як на всі ці виклики реагувати, тому що і технічні можливості, і час, в який нам пощастило жити, ці виклики кожен день народжують нові і нові. І очевидно, що наша українська влада постійно знаходиться перед таким вибором, коли з одного боку треба захиститися від агресії в країні, яка веде війну, від інформаційних війн. З іншої сторони, з іншого боку, завжди у влади є велика спокуса обмежити свободу слова, взяти під контроль ті чи інші медійні ресурси, особливо там, де часом це несе за собою і якісь корупційні виклики, а часом це пов'язане з питаннями цензури і політичної конкуренції. Причин для цього дуже багато. Тому, коли ми говоримо про регулювання в галузі медіа, маємо бути дуже обережними, розуміти, що регулювання в галузі медіа і в галузі інтернету вкрай необхідне, але ставитись до цього потрібно обережно, тому що, захищаючись від фейків і поширення інформації країни-агресору, від якої страждає Україна, а зараз ми бачимо, страждає не лише Україна, бо такі самі виклики стоять і перед Сполученими Штатами Америки, перед багатьма європейськими країнами. Разом з тим, ми все ж таки маємо пам'ятати, що ми країна демократична, і головна цінність, яку ми повинні обстоювати, це справді вільна свобода слова, вільний перебіг інформації, і це нас відрізняє від дуже багатьох інших тоталітарних країн. Зважаючи на те, як ви знаєте, в нас останнім часом було декілька медіа-ініціатив. Був закон, підготовлений Міністерством культури, про дезінформацію, який викликав дуже неоднозначну реакцію, і врешті-решт цей закон було відкликано. Хоча ми чудово розуміємо, що виклики, які перед нами стоять, і загрози, вони залишилися неврегульованими, але те, як цей закон було підготовлено, якраз і викликало занепокоєння і медійного співтовариства, і людей, які працюють в інтернеті, і тих, хто взагалі опікується і свободою слова, і правами людини, що, власне, свобода слова і права людини цим проектом закону обмежувалися. Але не будемо його довго обговорювати, оскільки він справді відкликаний. Натомість маємо ще один законопроект про медіа, який зараз буде розглядатися Верховною Радою. І я є одним з співавторів альтернативного законопроекту. Власне, альтернативний тому і народився, що була ціла низка пунктів, які викликали наше заперечення. Деякі з них не пов'язані ніяк з інтернетом, вони пов'язані скоріше з обмеженням гастрольної діяльності чи показів акторів з країни-агресора, які становлять небезпеку для національної безпеки країни. Тобто вони більше пов'язані з такими питаннями. Є пункти, пов'язані з регулюванням телебачення і радіо, але є один дуже важливий пункт, який пов'язаний з регулюванням інтернету. І, власне, в цьому пункті про що йдеться в тому законі, який поданий до Верховної Ради? От є блокування онлайн-контенту і реєстрація іноземних сайтів. І законопроект цей пропонує поширити свою дію на весь світ. Всі онлайн-ресурси фактично потрапляють під дію закону, якщо вони доступні на території України, а в нас всі онлайн-ресурси на території України доступні. Крім того, що закон за замовчуванням забороняє користувачам здійснювати платежі на користь незареєстрованих іноземних медіа, тобто і встановлює механізм блокування таких ресурсів. Якщо ви в магазині Apple чи в Google Play захочете щось придбати, то вони повинні мати обов'язково офіс в Україні, бо інакше закон забороняє робити ці покупки. І дуже багато інших таких речей, які, може, не пов'язані з регулюванням контенту, але насправді їх складно буде виконати або неможливо. Реєстрація або і відсутність щодо іноземних сайтів не повинна бути підставою для будь-яких обмежень користувачів з нашого боку. Крім того, якщо здійснювати фільтрацію реєстрацію призначення платежів за підписку онлайн-ресурсами або отримання доступу до контенту. Це може блокувати всю банківську систему. Один освітній курс на сайті udemy.com коштує $10, одна пісня в iTunes 99 центів. Якщо банк буде перевіряти призначення платежів на суму від $1, то фактично це міжнародні платежі зупинить повністю. А саме це передбачає цей закон. Щодо блокування контенту, то таку санкцію, якщо і лишати, то лише для очевидних порушень, наприклад, для протидії агресії, що передбачено розділом 9 законопроекту. В цьому, з нашої точки зору, є сенс. Для протидії розповсюдженню порнографії або онлайн-казино. Але в законі, на жаль, відсутні виписані підстави, коли Нацрада може застосовувати таку санкцію. По суті, це означає, що заблокувати можна будь-що і за будь-які інші мінімальні порушення. І, очевидно, це суперечить статті 10 Конвенції про захист прав людини і має бути виправлено. І це була причина, чому ми подавали альтернативний законопроект. Таким чином, якщо говорити про те, чи наблизилася наша держава до регулювання фейків в інтернеті, на жаль, можу сказати, що ні, тому що, перекриваючись цим бажанням, дуже часто наші керівники нашої держави намагаються під цим бажанням реалізувати якісь свої бачення щодо обмеження свободи слова і цензури, але це жодним чином не впливає на обмеження фейкової інформації, яка поширюється в Україні. Тому ці виклики перед нами надалі залишаються.
Дякую, пане Микола. Насправді ви маєте рацію, що ключове питання, наскільки поєднати регулювання і свободу слова. І, до речі, якщо ви говорили про безпеку, сьогодні Всесвітній день проти кіберцензури. Це теж елемент, наскільки тут є цензура, бо репортери без кордонів запровадили таку ініціативу. І ви, правда, не згадали один момент, який обговорюється в ЄС і в Україні, питання саморегуляції, self-regulation. Наскільки от сама спільнота може виставити критерії self-regulation. Ви ж, бекграунд у вас же ж журналістський, ви ж один, як ви кажуть, з медіа, не просто парламентар правом займається, ви маєте досвід медіа, ви можете з тої точки зору сказати, наскільки спільнота спроможна до такої саморегуляції, і крім того, наскільки медіа можуть, ми говоримо про конвергенцію медіа. Тобто медіа міняють свою роль. Наскільки є питання, що сама людина стає медіа. Ми говоримо про соціальні мережі, і багато блогерів мають більше аудиторію, ніж деякі канали.
Ну так, це починалося з розвитку громадянської журналістики, а зараз, очевидно, медіа, яке було певним посередником і яке, між іншим, на професійних засадах виконувало свою роботу для суспільства і жило з того, що воно виконувало цю роботу, будучи посередником між владою і суспільством, змінилося. Тому що, справді, кожна людина може бути індивідуальним медіаресурсом, але я не бачу серйозних загроз, тому що тут інтернет якраз дає спосіб для розвитку демократії. В таких діях загроза є там, де держави фактично втручаються в внутрішню політику інших держав, використовуючи в гібридній війні новітні способи доставки інформації через інтернет, створюючи так звані ботоферми або інші способи впливу. І ми це бачимо, втручаючись в це такий спосіб у вибори, використовуючи нові технології, бо інтернет дає змогу широко використовувати таргетинг, звертатися до саме тих цільових груп, до яких потрібно дійти, створювати фейкові акаунти. І ці акаунти, ми самі бачимо, що самі офіси соціальних мереж вже верифікують, і навіть Твіттер на один з твітів президента Трампа написав, що той поширив неперевірену інформацію. Тобто всі суспільства, не лише українські, розуміють, що в цьому є дуже великий виклик. Але особливий виклик для нас, тому що ми знаходимося в умовах війни, російсько-української гібридної війни, і, очевидно, Росія інформаційний ресурс використовує більше, ніж у будь-якій іншій країні. Це теж правда.
Дякую, ви зачепили питання глобальних платформ. Товариство, якщо ви маєте десь вже спішите, якщо ви маєте питання, одно-два питання можна задати, тоді перейдемо до презентації наших зарубіжних партнерів. Якщо є питання медіа, до пана Миколи, поки він тут присутній.
Якщо можна, ваша думка стосовно третього розділу законопроекту стосовно медіагромад. От ваш альтернативний, ваш законопроект, він передбачає цей розділ медіа? Чи є якісь зміни? Чи ви погоджуєтесь з тим законопроектом, який вже пройшов перше читання, стосовно саме медіагромад, ком'юніті медіа? Дякую.
Дивіться, я не бачу нічого поганого. З одної сторони, в нас було роздержавлення, з іншої сторони, оскільки ми зараз займаємося розвитком місцевого самоврядування, то, в принципі, кожна громада вправі сама вирішувати, на що і в який спосіб використовувати кошти. Але головне, щоб це дійсно було, щоб це керувалося певними принципами там внутрішнього і зовнішнього плюралізму. Тому що одна справа, коли раніше газети належали державним органам, або радіо належало державним органам, як, наприклад, там обладміністрації чи райадміністрації, це є одна історія. Інша справа, коли громади самі вирішують, наприклад, в той чи інший спосіб поширювати якусь інформацію або підтримати ті чи інші засоби масової інформації. Форм тут є дуже багато. Громади можуть надавати гранти, вони можуть влаштовувати конкурси, вони не можуть займатися політичним диктатом або обмеженням поширення інформації на користь однієї, наприклад, провладної політичної сили, яка є при владі в тій чи іншій громаді. Але, очевидно, вони можуть підтримувати розповсюдження суспільно важливої інформації в своїй громаді. Тому це залежить, як до цього підходити.
Ще одне коротке питання, і перейдемо до англійського.
Дякую. Юрій Кочевенко, громадська організація Міжнародний центр протидії російській пропаганді. Пане Микола, особливо в контексті цих подій, що відбуваються, і поїздок де певних політиків до Москви, і заяви інших політиків про внутрішні конфлікти, чи розглядаєте ви можливість, принаймні ініціативи, щоб викликати суспільне обговорення, впровадження кримінальної відповідальності за заперечення російської пропаганди публічне? Заперечення російської агресії.
Звичайно, я нічого поганого в цьому не бачу. Це позитивний крок. Інша справа, що Інша справа, що це не зупинить російську агресію. Але, очевидно, таким нахабним і антиукраїнським діям, які чинять деякі політики, підтримуючи своїми діями російську агресію або поширюючи неправдиву інформацію про те, що в нас є внутрішній громадянський конфлікт, ми повинні ефективно протидіяти і знайти для цього вихід. Я знаю, про що ви говорите. Сьогодні, оскільки я займаюся політикою, в нашій політичній силі буде нарада, і ми точно сьогодні на це маємо відреагувати. Ми зранку вже про це говорили і будемо реагувати відповідно до рішення нашої політичної сили. Сподіваюся, що інші політичні сили демократичні проукраїнські чинитимуть так само.
Thank you very much, Pan Mikola. Thank you. And we wish you success on your project. Now we would like to present the European approach and practice in the field of the media convergence, regulation of online media and social network. And we start with the presentation our project coordinator, Dr. Lukasz Porval from National University Ireland Galway from Dublin, Ireland, and he is from Poland and he's a very good friend. Hi, Lukasz, do you hear us?
Hello, everybody, can you hear me? Hello, yes. Okay. So, if everything works fine, hello everybody, good morning. I would like to welcome all the guests and presenters, our respected guests on behalf of Compact Project. Thank you even for the line of introduction. I think this specific symposium in Ukraine is of great importance, and I would like to extend our gratitude to everybody who came here today in person and online. As we know, the times are tough. A lot of is going on in the world, yet you took your time today to come together and discuss those important matters, which are fake news and disinformation, information validation in social networks. I will give you now a brief introduction of what Compact Project is, and I will give you some overview of the preliminary results of the project as well, and then I'll be followed by two more speakers from our consortium who will give you more detail in two specific areas that we are investigating in our project, which is social media regulation and court cases. So these are results which are a subset of our, I would say, product. We have also several other assets which are worth to explore. And now I will guide you in our presentation briefly on exactly what is the output of our project and how you can benefit from our outputs. So let's go on a journey. Let me switch here. Yes, it goes through. Okay, I lost the camera. I hope you see the slide changing. We have Compact project, which is 3 years project from October 2017 till the end of September 2020, and we are coordination and support action. Sorry? Okay, that's interesting. I will try to click now. It's okay? Okay. Sorry for that technical glitch. So once again, we are a coordination and support action. We run for 3 years. We are over 2 years in now. So we are in the last mile of our project, and we are in the domain of media convergence and social media. What CSA is, it's different from research and innovation action or innovation action. Our role is not to generate any specific product. We are more focused on gathering knowledge in the domain and presenting it to the audience and disseminating it to all kinds of communication channels. So this is the focus of this type of a project. I hope the presentation is visible. So this is our consortium. We have 15 partners. You would recognize the logo of Agency of European Innovation, who is the host today. Myself, I come from Insight Center for Data Analytics in Ireland, a National University of Ireland. And as you can see in the next slide, we are coming from many different countries, but there is a good representation of what is called Central and Eastern Europe. So of course we have Ukraine, but also we have partners from Bulgaria, from Slovakia, Slovenia, Latvia, Croatia. So there is also Greece, depends how you classify Greece, whether it's south of Europe or Central Europe. So you can see that our consortium is well represented in the region. And I think that's quite unique about this project, that unlike many projects before, which were somehow more focused or a bit biased towards Western Europe, we are also looking at the matters in the East, which slightly differ from what is going on in the West. And I think our project also kind of highlights it very well and shows the those differences and what are the strong points and weak points in both regions, actually. And in terms of coverage, these are our major products. So we generated, we generate still research agendas and roadmaps for EU. We analyze pre-standardization initiatives. We analyze disinformation combating initiatives. And we also have the study of judicial approaches, which will be kindly presented by Evangelia shortly after myself and Andrei. Andrei will present the regulation of social media, our results on regulation. We have gender aspect study, which is to be released soon. It's a quite unique piece looking at the aspects of gender in the topic of social media and media convergence. And finally, we have policy and regulatory frameworks, and that will be largely covered also today by Andrei in his presentations that will follow immediately after mine. And in terms of the method, I mentioned we are a CSA, Coordination and Support Action. Therefore, we do not generate any specific, let's say, research project per se. However, our work includes a lot of research. So we have desk research. We look at scientific publications. We look at, let's say, popular publications, white papers. So this is our set for analysis. If you can say, it's our state-of-the-art analysis. But this is not enough, of course, and we are looking at we are communicating with the stakeholders, with regulation bodies across Europe and other entities with whom we, of course, we get their inputs and we communicate our results back. Also, we have symposia as this one. Just a couple of weeks ago, we had a very similar symposium in Lisbon, in Portugal. And yeah, in those meetings, we also heavily engage with our stakeholders. Sometimes we have follow-up stakeholders meetings co-located with those events, and they are a source of immense amount of information for us. And we also try to share our results to the date. And finally, we attend all kinds of scientific and policy events, and we support them, we present in those venues. So if you look at, again, the scope and how, what are our methods, we are all about discovery, consolidation of the knowledge in the domain, and sharing, sharing with stakeholders, sharing with the public. And in terms of preliminary results, I would like to show you some subset of results coming maybe a bit from different reports as well that will not be presented today. So now I'm presenting some content from Joseph Stefan Institute, prepared by Dr. Tania Pawlewska. And since we talked today about fake news, I wanted to disambiguate a few terms, and I think that would be of interest to everybody to know that fake news is not only about, let's say, fake information. So we have three basic types. We have disinformation, misinformation, and malinformation. And disinformation is this classic understanding of fake news, where we have false information which is spread with intention to harm. Yeah, so we have some bad intentions and we spread false information. That's disinformation, and this is the most popular type. However, often when people talk about fake news, they only think about this type, but we have also misinformation, and that can be, again, false news, but spread without intention to cause harm, which by, let's say, bad luck can also cause harm sometimes, but the original intention is, let's say, could be satire. Yeah, we have a lot of portals like The Onion, which by default generate fake news, but that's supposed to increase people's awareness of some specific issues, and it's basically through a humorous satire way, and that could be classified as misinformation. Yes, so by default it is false, but it should be clear that it is false, and by this it should somehow raise awareness of some issues. And then finally we have malinformation, where the specific content can be actually real, but it is used in a way, in a very specific way, to cause harm. And I think that's a bit more sophisticated type of fake news, because on the surface it is real, but when we look, maybe it's shown, like the information is shown in a very specific angle, or basically, you know, it's spread for with some bad intention. So the classic maybe malinformation example could be maybe some news about migrants. You know, some bad news, which maybe would not be of great significance. So there was some event, some incident, but it's spread all over Europe just to increase the bad sentiment towards migrants. So that could be, for instance, malinformation. Yeah? So just to repeat, so we have disinformation, misinformation, malinformation. First is false news with bad intentions, then we have false news with no bad intentions, and then finally malinformation, where you can have real content but with bad intentions. Yeah. And then in terms of our findings in this, let's say, categories, so that was our, let's say, theoretical part of our theoretical framework, is that the fact-checking and debunking activities are not very effective combating fake news. Of course, they are like painkillers, right? We try to fight the symptoms, but we don't really address the problem. And our, let's say, results are that a lot of those initiatives are not very effective, or not as effective as we wish them to be. And there is a need for more fundamental change, specific policies, and a change of practice. And actually, in our keynote speech in Portugal just a couple of weeks ago, the Professor Philip M. Napoli from Stanford University in the United States highlighted how, for instance, the way the business models are set up in online reality actually encourages, fake news and extreme news, if I can say. So news which are, overloaded with emotion. So they go extreme left or extreme right. And that's just to get enough clicks. So there is a whole bunch of the issues which go far beyond just daily fact checking. And yeah, we also will be discussing this today in this symposium, how we can solve it at the deeper level. And in terms of the studied disinformation fighting initiatives, so these results are now being updated. We'll have another report, so some of those figures might not be holding, but just to give you a highlight, so we figured that about 61% of initiatives of this type are non-regulatory type, and gender equality is not really considered, if we can say, to any reasonable extent. And fundamental rights are usually addressed through those, and freedom of expression. These are the main things addressed by them, and only 32% initiatives use any kind of sophisticated or advanced technology. And this figure is actually lower than that, I suppose, now after we updated our analysis. So a lot of those initiatives are, yeah, that's why this bit provocative picture here, that our tools are not as sophisticated as they could be. So we hear a lot about using advanced AI and technological means of fighting disinformation, but still there is much to be done in terms of employing these emerging technologies for the social good. And if we talk about disinformation initiatives themselves, there is no any specific sanctioning mechanisms in place. So all the interventions are quite soft. So we need stronger frameworks. A few more things before I pass to my speakers. Following you with more details, I will just briefly go through. So things that we follow, we found out is also that there is very few standards. If you talk about pre-standardization, because this is also area that we looked at that was analyzed by PSD from Croatia. Moni Podmujak actually was the main author here. So we are currently working on another report that would be released soon, talking about standardization and actually lack of thereof in the scene. And in terms of some highlights of self-regulation, and Andre will talk much in detail just in a minute. I see I have to actually finish very soon. Is that there is a need to for different approaches, like economy-based approach and technological approach, to encourage exactly fixing social media. As I mentioned, Professor Napoli in Portugal also was stressing on the business models which have to be explored as kind of an issue. And just recent findings, highlight of findings in our project. So let's say trends. So this is the last bit I would like to present, and this is literally last minute now, is that we, especially here working with Andre, the next speaker, we identified several key issues that are, let's say, trending. We have digital identity, bots, regulatory changes of immersive technologies, micro-targeting, social media influencers. And just briefly, digital identity includes two things. So it's the identity, your explicit identity, which is expressed through your social media accounts, but also the identity which is built upon information collected about you and you are not aware of. And this is the biggest challenge. So you have this shadow of yourself, which is out there, and you have no control over it. Another one is bots. Bots are basically automated social personas which respond to you on social media, also in, let's say, only on other web portals. There is little regulation in this field, and so we don't know sometimes whether we speak to AI or not, or what are the privacy implications of them collecting information. Finally, we have immersive technologies, which are booming now, so virtual augmented reality. There is lack of frameworks there, and they pose a lot of potential danger. Like, you know, AR technologies like in China, for instance, social ranking, identifying people in the public. These are all things to look at as well as these technologies are emerging. Micro-targeting, of course, we know it from daily life. We are being targeted with adverts from all angles, and how those adverts are directed to us is a bit blurred, and what kind of information is used is unclear. Finally, the problem of influencers. They have a great impact on our daily life and public sphere, and they can have much more impact than major media houses today, yet there is lack of any restraint or regulation. So if we consider like the currently, spreading a problem of coronavirus, there is a lot of misinformation spread by influencers, or and you don't know, how valid is the information they present, right? But yet a lot of people would listen to them. So this is a big issue. And let's say my last words are that we figure out that many analyses showed and actually discussed in the press are based on myths and suggestions which have no scientific underpinning, and they pass on as dogmas, and they are further propagated. However, there's more investigation needed in the field and a more broad understanding of the issues. So I would like to finish here because I already went over time, and thank you very much for listening. And once again, I would like to welcome everybody in this very important symposium in Ukraine. I think Ukraine, being in, let's say, in the heart of East of Europe, plays a key role in this media ecosystem, and we are particularly interested in also getting feedback from stakeholders in Ukraine and the region, and incorporating it in our analysis. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lukasz. And we have time for question after all presentation. Our colleague will stay in contact. I want to, you have place around the table. Please come into close. And now we will continue with the next presentation. One of the initiators of the project, Dr. Andrzej Skolkaj, from School of Communication and Media from Slovakia. Hi, Andrzej, are you in contact?
Okay. Good. Hello, everybody.
Hello from Slovakia to Ukraine.
It was my daughter. Thank you. So, and what we produce a lot of materials, and this should serve somebody to make decisions, to get informed. And one reason, major reason, is that the European Commission considers to prepare directive on social media or digital privacy regulation in the second half of this year. And for that purpose, we are collecting material, opinions, and suggestions, whether this is needed, or if yes, if it is needed, how it should look like. Because there are many options for how to regulate social media. Not only legislation. Lukasz mentioned these economy-based approaches, for example, right? Different incentives. And so we have collected on the input from the request, the Commission basically indirectly from different countries around the world. And that's the paper that the handout collection of ideas that you have here and available to you. And I mean this one. You see it? Yeah? Oh yeah? Okay. How to share it? Yeah, I put it there. Oh, pity, yeah, but it's because that doesn't seem to be working now. Can you open it? Yeah. Yeah, good. And if you go to the bottom of that material, okay. Oh, what is this? Yeah. Okay, good. If you go at the bottom of that, you can get some hints about what is it about. And basically, we divided it based on stakeholders. This means politicians of states who are in yellow color, regulators, media regulatory bodies and others in violet color, sort of experts, and journalists. This is based on the stakeholders. And the second is based on intensity of approach of both, which means encouraging, supporting, like soft measures, punishing, enforcing, and of course, kind of neutral measures. And the point here is basically, in a summary, that while it started a couple of years ago with very soft or neutral measures or no regulation, actually, maybe 10 years ago there was so-called Wild West on the internet in general. Now we are moving towards quite radical approaches towards regulation of social media. And it is particularly visible when you check some countries like United Kingdom, Australia, maybe New Zealand, and Germany. Of course, this follows all these events, like Cambridge scandal and Christchurch shoot. But this is the general trend. And one general issue when you look at these suggestions for regulation by many, from analytical perspective, is that you can have dozens of experts, journalists, politicians who are supporting certain approach to regulation or not, but they may be still wrong. You can get one or two experts who can have most efficient and effective measures, regulatory measures suggested. So this we have to take into account. For example, there is still used to be very popular media literacy or digital media literacy measures, basically educating users, especially kids and parents. But some research and experience shows that it somehow doesn't really work. So even based on this and other aspects, we're moving toward public state regulation, which is actually a vision by the European Commission, which was in place a couple of years ago, because there was move towards self-regulation or co-regulation in all areas which are to be regulated, not only social media. But public state regulation, including the recent discussion in the UK about a special board, which should regulate social media, is increasing in prominence. So that's the message from here. It's somehow maybe unexpected development. But if you look in this third level of measures enforcement, the one guy who supports public state regulation or social media platforms is actually also Mark Zuckerberg. There are also Bernard Lee, founder of Internet Protocol, and some other names. So, of course, some regulators like media broadcast or European regulatory network, they suggest kind of business broadcast type regulation specifically. So this is a subtype. Public state regulation and business broadcast type regulation is basically the same but different form. This includes some other measures, as you can see there. So this is the interesting message here, that we are moving to, in some countries, to quite harsh measures to regulate media. But this discussion is open, and this symposium is part of the discussion. And maybe we will suggest some efficient and effective measures how to regulate social media, because it is becoming truly, or has become already, a global issue. Thank you very much.
Maybe can I get a screen for a little while, a little more time, if we have spare minute? If Andrei finished already?
Yeah.
Okay. Unless Andrei, you still have something?
No, I am finished.
Okay. So I would like to just show just a couple of slides on. Let me see if I can do it. Okay. Can you see that on the screen now? Yes? Okay, perfect. So I just wanted to show you some brief overview of the challenges in terms of social media regulation. So that's a different report that we also compiled with Andrei. So it's a very quick, let's say, swag over what we figure out while interacting with regulation bodies. And one of the one of the discoveries is that country of origin is often used as kind of an excuse for not regulating social media. So as you may know, most of the social media houses are hosted by Ireland. Their headquarters are in Ireland, especially Facebook. Therefore, Facebook is bound by Irish regulation, whether it operates in Poland, or other Ukraine or Germany or any other country. It's somehow bound by Irish legislation, and that's the country of origin rule. And often this is actually used as a kind of, as I say, maybe excuse, saying that this is all up to Irish authorities. We have no jurisdiction there, or we are too small, or difficult, or this is a difficult topic. So this is the major issue. We figure out that there is a need for more horizontal legislation. Sometimes the rules are too specific, and they are not covering a broad spectrum of social media and also related technologies. We figured that sometimes basically we focus on too much detail in legislation. Transparency and provenance is often a problem with all the processes, but often the problem mentioned is lack of expertise. So the regulators say we don't have any specific expertise in terms of social media, therefore we can't really regulate that field. And let's say social media are treated as this kind of, if I can say colloquially, odd animal. They are not really media, they are not really IT, they are not telecommunication sector, and they're kind of left behind. And then let's say the argument is we don't have expertise. Another issue is diversity, and this is basically cultural diversity among European states. So whatever, for instance, is acceptable in one country might not be acceptable in another. So that might be also an issue in terms of regulation, that some rules can be stricter in some countries and in other more relaxed, especially in terms of content. Like if we think about, let's say, adult content, maybe some countries have less restrictive rules and they would have different understanding of classification of the content, and that poses a challenge for regulation. And then also often pointed out that there's resistance from media houses themselves to be regulated. And we are not talking only about social media, popular social media like Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, but we talk about, let's say, press, which now offers on-demand videos, and they should be regulated as, let's say, media provider, but they would like to avoid this kind of situation, and there is a certain resistance from, let's say, mainstream media also to be regulated. So it's not only those big houses, those big social media giants that, you know, are shown as the primary reason for problems, and they should be regulated, but there is a problem of other entities avoiding being regulated. And then another thing is that over-regulation can be a problem, and there is a fear that over-regulation can actually stop innovation. And as we may know, there is this kind of debate, like whether which approach is better. Like you see, like US or maybe in Asia, regulation is much more relaxed, but they definitely dominate the market now because of those more relaxed rules. So the solutions from their countries are dominating the world, while in Europe, over-regulation may actually limit local players in reaching the market. So this is where I would like to finish. Maybe last slide is that influencers were also mentioned as kind of area difficult to regulate for various reasons, but I don't want to extend there further. I just wanted to finish here to allow next speaker, Evangelia, to talk about a very interesting report, which is on court cases across Europe. So I would like to pass it on to Evangelia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lukasz.
Good morning.
Okay, I have to stop. Sorry, presentation. Yeah, I'm going.
Okay,
yeah.
Evangelia. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Just two ideas to follow up to this, because this is relevant. I asked for earlier. Competencies of professionals in the regulatory bodies, you know, the issue. The European regulatory platform actually has passed some decision to increase competencies and hire professionals. I think this is what we should have any longer, because it's an excuse. And actually, in the last years, actually, it was regulatory bodies and boards that helped very much to implement audiovisual services directly, including its new versions. And the second issue might be about the interesting phenomenon we have observed that, for example, social media companies, small and medium enterprises, and the associations, they have difficulties to express their opinion how social media should be regulated or not. So it's for us very surprising, because on the one hand, they demand constantly from the European Commission consider the opinion and also not to have over-regulated everything. But in practical terms, they're not always able to explain what they would like to have regulation should look like. Thank you very much, that's all. Sorry.
Yes, can you hear me? Good morning. Yes, it works? Okay, excellent. So I'm very pleased to be with you today, even if this has to be through an online connection. it would have been much better if we had the opportunity to join you in Ukraine in person. I am Evangelia Psychoyopoulou. I'm a senior research fellow at the Hellenic Foundation for European and Foreign Policy in Athens, in Greece. And we are one of the partners participating in the Compact project. The purpose of my presentation today is to share with you preliminary findings concerning a study that we have carried out in the context of the Compact project on national court rulings. So I will now try to share my screen, or is it a window, Oles? Is it a window or the entire screen that I can? Okay. Let me see. A window break. Yeah, maybe. I think cancel. Just a moment. A window. Here it is. Slides. So excellent. Can you see the slides? Okay. Our coordinator has already explained what the Compact project is about, mainly to promote debate among principal stakeholders on social media and convergence. And indeed, it has been stressed by Lucas already that this is a coordination and support action funded by the EU, which means that the very purpose is to facilitate dialogue and create a space for collaboration and networking as far as the development of social media policies and regulation is concerned. At the same time, the interesting thing with this coordination and support action project is that it had also a pretty important research dimension. There are different work packages in the project that have such a research dimension. I will speak today about work package 2. Which is about identifying and analyzing national and European policies addressing social media and convergence. And I'm speaking only about this work package because that's the work package within which we drafted the report on national courts, social media, and convergence. This report is based on the premise that courts are important actors of social media governance. And we mainly believe so for 2 reasons. The first one has to do with rule interpretation. So what we are arguing is that when judges are called upon to decide a dispute, the first thing we need to do is to determine the law that's applicable to the dispute. So in doing that, they do not solely only declare what the laws say, but also create understandings of the rules and regulations. This very much means, at the end of the day, that they define the applicable legal standards in the field of social media. At the same time, because of both the opportunities and the pressures that social media created, as far as protection of fundamental rights is concerned, we do believe that courts, judges have an important role to play in terms of protecting and balancing distinct fundamental rights in the field of social media. So today, I think we would all agree that social media are an important means for the exercise of freedom of expression, for the exercise of the right to information, the right to impart information, the right to receive information and share information. At the same time, there are significant tensions between free speech and the rights of others, what we call the rights of others, so the protection of one's reputation, the protection of the right to private and family life, data protection rights, and so on. And social media has also brought to the fore important challenges for the maintenance of public order, national security, the prevention of disorder or crime, mainly because illegal content can be easily disseminated through social media. So judges do have an important role to play when it comes to protecting and balancing fundamental rights in this field. Our focus when conducting this study has been on the jurisprudence of Supreme and constitutional courts, as well as second instance courts in a number of countries. You can see the countries on the slide. We studied Bulgaria, Croatia, Greece, Italy, Latvia, Portugal, Slovakia, and Slovenia. So we studied Supreme and Constitutional Courts, second instance courts. We didn't study decisions issued by first instance courts. The study does mainly three different things. It presents the case law and important characteristics of the case law. It discusses judicial reasoning concerning social media, the concept of social media, how social media is approached by judges, and also judicial reasoning on fundamental rights when such reasoning takes place in the court decisions. And it also examines judicial dialogue between courts, social media cases. Quite often in the field of social media case law, the expectation, or not quite, the expectation was that judges would refer to the case law of other courts. This may be domestic courts, European courts, or foreign courts in order to support the reasoning as regards to the dispute that we are about to decide. So these are the three things that the study discusses. In terms of data collection, we, of course, benefited from input from national research teams. These teams are all Compact partners, so they participate in the Compact project. And data collection took place in two phases. So during phase A, we focused on the rulings of Supreme and Constitutional Courts. So every research team identified the cases at the national level. And we also did pilot testing in Greece and Italy in order to develop a template, a common template for case notes to be used for each single ruling coming within our database. Phase B was devoted to the case law of second instance courts, and then we coded all the materials, analyzed them. Some teams had interviews also with local experts in order to discuss domestic case law and interesting trends. And every single team also prepared background information notes, which were meant mainly to inform us about the different sources that have been used at the national level in order to gather, to collect the rulings, the court cases. For the purposes of the presentation today, I will focus on our findings concerning higher court cases. So here you can see a sample. We're talking about 147 higher court cases from Bulgaria, Croatia, Greece, Italy, Latvia, Slovakia, Slovenia, for a period of almost 6 years and a half, from the beginning of 2012 until the end of May in 2018. Our sample includes cases on social media like Facebook, Twitter, and so on, but we also have cases on blogs, on chat rooms and other online forums, messaging applications, as well as cases concerning traditional media, legacy media if you prefer, and online news media, when these cases deal with user-generated content. And here the underlying argument for including such cases in our sample was that they very much share the same characteristics with social media in terms of interactivity, in terms of creative self-expression, in terms of connected communication, and so on. The majority of cases from higher courts come from Supreme Court. We're talking about 97% of our cases. we had just 5 constitutional court cases dealing with social media, and these cases were from Italy, Latvia, Slovakia, and Slovenia. As regards the issue areas, those issue areas which are more frequent in higher court cases, 35%, for example, is about cases concerning defamatory, degrading, and insulting content. Here we're talking about cases that deal with publications, potential publications in social media, blogs, and the online press. Concerning comments made by users in reaction to articles that have been published. The second category, 31%, it's about cases that involve social media content as evidence in proceedings, as evidence in domestic proceedings, mostly criminal. And then we have the third category, its case is on hate speech and other illegal content. 19% of our sample. This is a quite generous category, in both cases dealing with hate speech, but also cases concerning content that incites to terrorism, that incites to commit a crime, child pornography, persecutities, and so on. I think I would like to focus today on the fundamental rights dimension of relevant case law. We see that as far as higher court cases are concerned, just 15% of these cases involve judicial reasoning and fundamental rights in general. So we're talking about 22 out of the 147 cases with a fundamental rights component. In more detail, 4 out of the 5 constitutional court cases have a fundamental rights dimension, which is somehow not a surprise because constitutional courts tend to engage in fundamental rights reasoning. And from the Supreme Court cases that we have, 18 out of 142 Supreme Court cases, judges present the reasoning on fundamental rights. Now, when judges do engage in fundamental rights analysis, free speech is central to such analysis. From the higher court rulings that we studied, almost 82% of these rulings address freedom of expression. And we have different types of free speech cases. We have cases dealing with political speech, so the speech of politicians, parliamentarians, and so on. We have very interesting cases concerning freedom of expression and the impact that social media has on legacy media regulation. So here the question is, should existing standards for the traditional media be revisited, be revised because of the expansion of social media? We have cases dealing with freedom of the press, and here the question is whether existing safeguards for the press should also apply in the case of social media. And then we have other freedom of expression cases dealing mainly with public figures. And I will try to give a couple of examples concerning each category of rulings. So first, freedom of political speech. One case, pretty interesting case from the Constitutional Court of Latvia from 2017. Here, the issue was that including the internet in domestic rules concerning the prohibition of pre-election campaigning the day of election and the day before was considered to be a restriction on free speech. So here, parliamentarians brought the case before the Constitutional Court of Latvia, arguing that this is a disproportionate restriction on free speech because such broad inclusion of the internet in the case law is that social media, but also email communication is included in the prohibition of pre-election campaigning. However, before the court had the opportunity to rule on the case, domestic legislation was amended in order to circumscribe the prohibition as far as the internet was concerned, so that this prohibition would only refer to services as a paid service, And then the court decided to terminate proceedings. An interesting case dealing with political speech coming from Italy was a case from the Constitutional Court of 2013. According to the Italian Constitution, free speech, parliamentarians' free speech is considered to be subject to wider protection. So members of parliament may avoid liability for statements they make when they perform their parliamentary functions. So there has to be a functional nexus, as Italian law states, between the statement, the political statement made, and the political activity. So here, a case was brought before the Constitutional Court because there was a misunderstanding, a conflict of competence between the parliamentary body in the Italian Senate, judges as to who would decide who should assess the statements made by an Italian parliamentarian against the president of Italy. And here the court acknowledged that social media has an important contribution to political speech because social media is used very much by politicians, right? But at the same time, the court took the position that it would be unreasonable to confirm such a functional nexus, connection between statements in social media, over social media, and political activity whenever a parliamentarian uses social media to reach out to citizens. The next case, an extremely interesting case from Slovakia, a case from 2014, dealing with the impact of social media on legacy media regulation. Here, the disputes arose from a decision of the Slovak media regulator, which found a TV outlet, a TV broadcaster, to have violated domestic rules on objective and impartial news reporting. So here the court stated that requirements for impartial reporting had indeed been imposed in the 1980s legitimately, because at the time the purpose was to sustain democracy and promote media pluralism, so that the information offered by what was at the time a limited number of media outlets would not be manipulated. But situation has changed. The change is brought to the media environment, the media landscape, including the advent of social media, no longer justified, according to the Constitutional Court, such strict regulation of impartiality in general. So here the court came to the conclusion that interference with broadcasters' free speech grounds of partiality is lawful only if it falls within the scope of provisions of the domestic constitution on legitimate restrictions concerning free speech, namely protecting the rights of others, national security, public order, protection of health and morals, and so on. So this is a very interesting case. We don't have another case of the same kind in example, showing that there might be changes concerning how judges interpret existing legislation concerning the traditional media because of the expansion and the broad uptake of social media. But it's definitely something to for future research as well, to look into cases that also in other countries that may show such a turn in prudence. Freedom of the press cases, a line of cases mainly from Italy, coming from Italy. Here,
I believe it's
Can you hear me? I lost you for a while. I'll try again. Okay. So here we are. So these cases, freedom of the press cases, they all came from Italy. They were about allegedly defamatory content that had been published online, either on blogs and social media or in newspaper articles. And then the problem was that the concerned web page had been seized as an interim measure. So the issue was whether social media and blogs could benefit from the constitutional privileges of the press, namely the constitutional prohibition of seizure, as far as Italy was concerned. And here the Italian judges from the Supreme Court came to the conclusion that social media blogs cannot qualify as the press. They do not have the same structure with the press. They do not have the same characteristics of the press, and therefore they cannot be subject to the constitutional guarantees of the press, namely prohibition of seizure. A couple of points on cases concerning public figures. We have a case from the Supreme Court of Bulgaria, for instance, from 2015, concerning a journalist found guilty of insult because of a social media publication of an article she had written against a politician. And here the Supreme Court stated that the limits of criticism vis-à-vis public figures and politicians can indeed be wider. So free speech should not be restricted in case of criticism concerning the professional life of a public figure or the public activity of a public figure, but at the same time, degrading statements that did not contribute to a debate of general interest concerning the public figure should not come within the scope of protection of free speech. And then again, concerning public figures, an Italian Supreme Court case from 2017. Here we had a judge found guilty of disciplinary offenses for statements he had made on the discussion forum of a blog concerning the profession of lawyers. And the case was reached eventually the Italian Supreme Court, and the court said that indeed the role of judges in the administration of justice is important, but this should not result in an excessive limitation of their ability to participate in public debate, because this would be a disproportionate limitation on freedom of expression of the judiciary. Sources of fundamental right provision. So when higher courts do engage fundamental rights reason, what sources of fundamental rights provisions do they use? We have mainly national constitutions, national constitutional provisions, so not a big surprise here. What is interesting is that we couldn't identify any use of the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the EU that has indeed an influence on judicial assessment, on judicial reasoning. This is not the case for the European Convention of Human Rights, which is used by national judges, usually in conjunction with domestic constitutional provisions. And indeed, there is quite often combined reference in freedom of expression cases of the national constitutional provision concerning freedom of expression and Article 10 of the European Convention of Human Rights. When judges make use of the European Convention of Human Rights, they frequently combine such references with references to the case law of the European Court of Human Rights. And indeed, there is a broad array of judgments on freedom of expression that have been issued by the European Court of Human Rights, and domestic judges can pick those rulings from the European Court that are convenient and help them to highlight particular points in their reasoning. What is interesting, I think, to mention is that none of the cases that we reviewed have domestic judges tried to question the European court's reasoning. So reference to the Strasbourg court rulings is always, at least within our sample, made in order to support national judicial reasoning and corroborate national judicial reasoning. So I think I will stop here. Thank you very much for your attention. Our study is soon to be uploaded on the Compact website, so I would like to invite you all to have a look into it, and you can get a catching place of questions. Thank you very much for your attention.
So, thank you, Angelia. Dear colleague, this Compact project has a wide of spectrum, a wide range topic to present on the website. Now we have time 10 minutes for question. If you want to ask a question for, okay, I come to you with your name and question.
Irina Bondarevskaya, Institute of Social and Political Psychology. My question is to the first presenter. Sorry if I mispronounced the name, Lukasz Powell.
That's correct.
And the question is regarding this classification you gave, and mole information was about real information with bad intentions. And not in the field study, but in real life study, how is it possible to measure bad intentions? It is due to interpretation, and every person can have his or her own interpretation of intentions. That was the question.
I was muted, sorry. It's definitely not easy to measure the intent. It's very difficult, definitely. That's why we have, first of all, the fact-checking proposed to provide filtering of that kind. But definitely, if you talk about malinformation, something is based on reality. Often you can see that advertising may act this way as well. So I think also the category that the specific news comes from may indicate an intent. In terms of misinformation, if we have Blue Onion or similar satire profile, the origin is an indication. So the origin, the source, specifies explicitly we are satire profile or satire portal. Therefore, whatever we say, you shouldn't treat seriously. So I mentioned it one slide, provenance. Provenance is very important and transparent. Therefore, that information, if it's attached to the news, that can help to disambiguate in first place. When the explicit information is provided, so for instance, it is satire, or for instance, it's a political advertising, or it's a commercial advertising. And then the second line, if this is not disambiguated, is fact-checking, and that would be basically between disinformation and malinformation. Yeah, whether whatever was disseminated there, you know, it was the intention there to harm, you know. I think that's in few words. I don't know if that answers what you asked, but I hope that provide you with partial answer.
Thanks, Lukasz.
Thank you very much.
Next question. No question? Comments? Ask? Okay. Thanks, colleague, for your presentation. I hope you stay in the contact when we present from our colleague, and I switch the to presentation from interviews me Maxim Panchenko about Russia. You can use this right, left, and
Hello to everybody. My name is Maxim Panchenko from Internews Ukraine, as has already been said. And I'm going to concentrate on a very niche thing, but a very important thing. And the idea is that Ukraine, it's no secret, Ukraine wages, it defends itself in the propaganda war from Russian Federation, which is part of the hybrid warfare against our country, and a particular type of disinformation and propaganda that Ukraine faces is historical propaganda. And in fact, it makes perfect sense because it is very understandable. If you want to undermine a current regime or current political realities and so on and so forth, you will be speaking about the present. But if you want to undermine the idea of the state as such, you will be trying to look into the history and try to explain why this or that country has no right or no grounds to be present on the world map. So the importance of historical propaganda can be proven by just several quite recent instances of what has been talked by public officials in the Russian Federation. For instance, the recently retired Surkov, who was responsible, who was serving as an aide to Vladimir Putin and was responsible for Ukraine and, among other things, for conflict settlement in the Donbas region on the part of Russia, to the extent it could be called settlement on the part of Russia. And in an interview he gave to Russian media, he said, and I quote, that there is no Ukraine, there is no such thing as Ukraine, there is Ukrainianship, which is a specific mental disorder. A pretty harsh thing to say, right? And a couple of days later, Putin said in his own interview to Russian media that, well, he reiterated the idea that Ukraine and Russia are one nation. They have never been separable, and that, in fact, the political project of Ukraine, it was the project elaborated by the Austrian General Staff back, 150 years, something like that. So you can see that that Russian political circles actively refer to the topic of history and try to undermine Ukrainian statehood that way. So Internews Ukraine decided to look into what specific narratives and what specific ideas were the most common among the Russian propaganda in this realm. So about a year ago we looked into it, and yes. So, but in order not to be blamed for being partial on ourselves, on our part, and in order not to be blamed that we just tried to present some counter propaganda, we referred to a couple of partners. First of all, we referred to professional Ukrainian historians who have a professional view on the topics that we would find out. So these were people from the Ligbez Historical Front project. This is the informal association of Ukrainian historians that are very active in different, in different aspects. They have their website, they have book publications, they hold public events and video lectures and so on and so forth. You can see their surnames and names here on this slide. And when we tried to gather information to begin with, we referred to our partners from the company Singularex. That is, it presents itself as a consolidation of data scientists, programmers, and analysts. So with their help, we looked into the information disseminated among the two social media of Kontakte, because it is more of Russian social media, even though it is formally prohibited for Ukrainian providers to provide access to this media. It still is used by Ukrainians. And of course, Facebook, as its popularity in Ukraine has increased drastically after the ban of Kontakte. So we have analyzed about 850,000 posts on VK and about 16,000 posts on Facebook, and we tried to with the help of Singularics. We tried to look into those that contained the keywords we were searching for, that were the markers of this historical topic in Russian narratives. And having done that, we came up with 6 most disseminated, most popular narratives about Ukrainian history that were circulating in the Russian information space, and I'm going to briefly characterize each of these narratives and try to relay the response that was given to these narratives by the aforementioned Ukrainian historians. So the first myth can be summarized in the idea that Ukraine is a failed shadow of Russia, that in fact, I think this is the most long-living myth about Ukrainian statehood, or rather lack thereof. Well, the idea comes down to the fact that there have never been such thing as Ukraine, that Ukraine has always been an outskirt of Russia, and this is a very popular, even linguistically, this is a very popular idea disseminated by Russia, that Ukraine in Ukrainian language sounds very alike to the word Ukraina, which is the outskirt. And so Russia has always said, like, you see, even the name of your country says that you belong to us, you're just our border, and that's it. And the response of our historians that we referred to was that there may be an interpretation that the name of Ukraine came from this outskirt theory, but in fact, back at the time, this meant not the outskirt of Russia, or Russian Empire, or Moscow as such, or something like that, but rather it was rather the outskirt of Central Europe, because further to the east and further to the south there were territories, the steppe territories, and so this was the last relatively densely populated area. And this is further confirmed by the fact that the name Ukraine can be found in ancient scripts seriously before any mention of Russian Empire, of Moscow being even founded. So this is chronologically previously to that. There was no entity to be an outskirt of when the name Ukraine appeared. So switching to the second myth is that Ukraine is an artificial project of the West, and this is something that I have already mentioned about Putin, who said that Ukraine is a project of, for instance, the Austrian General Staff. Well, what our historians say to this is that in fact, each state can be called to a lesser or bigger extent a project, a political project, and Russia is also a political project, and every state is a political project, because, you know, there is the concept of nation state and all of that. And the question is whether that or other political project state will be sustainable, and whether it will persist through centuries. And Ukraine, having gotten through such turmoil as for instance Holodomor and the Soviet era, Ukraine has persisted as an entity, as a state, which just proves that Ukraine is a political project per se that has managed to live through centuries. The third myth, and I think this one is currently the most popular because of the developments of the recent years, is that Crimea and Donbass and the southeast of Ukraine are inherently Russian territories. I think the most notorious in this sense is Crimea, because this is where our historians were able to give the most specific response, because they said that in fact Crimea was Russian only for about 5.6% of its history, because it also it had previously belonged to Crimean Tatars, to the Ottoman Empire, to many other, starting with the 12th or 13th centuries, which is why, and Russia came there significantly later in the 19th century. So, and Russians have never constituted any majority as a population there previously. So that's a totally debunked myth. And when Russia says that the southeast of Ukraine is also Russian, our historians say that this myth about Novorossiya is related to the history of colonization of the Black Sea region, but it rather relates to, but the history in this period of the region rather relates to how these territories were colonized by Ukrainian peasants, but by not Russians. So the next one is about the Soviet Union. It says that USSR was a powerful empire and that Stalin was a hero, and as a result, Russians imply that Ukraine should be thankful to the USSR and to Stalin for allegedly being economically viable, for elevating among other member republics in the USSR and becoming a coherent territory, a coherent entity within the USSR. But in fact, if we look at what Ukraine has gone through during the period of the USSR, we shall see that these sacrifices were enormous, and even if we can speak about any economic development or something in the period of USSR, it hardly was worth of millions of lives, because just several examples of what USSR did to Ukraine is that there were several famines in which millions of Ukrainians, from 1 to 4 approximately millions of Ukrainians died. Ukrainians, I will talk about this later also, but I can already say that Ukrainians constituted about 23, so around 25% of the Red Army, and it was on the very front of the Second World War when we talk about the Eastern Front. So Ukraine sacrificed, or was made sacrifice, really a lot in this sense. The fifth narrative is that, I think this is also one of the several very popular now that we have a war with Russia, is that all Ukrainian nationalists were fascists, and well, there are several things to say here. Trying to refer to some objectivity, to some point of reference that would not present Ukrainian or Russian point of view, we can see that the Nuremberg Tribunal of 1946 that was very sensitive to this topic, to the topic of fascism and Nazism, because it was engaged in all those crimes against humanity. I mean, in discovering and investigating them. It still did not find that Ukrainian organizations where the Russians are talking about that they were fascist. This tribunal did not find out that these were fascist, in fact. And also there is a very specific fact. There is this Ukrainian motto that says "Glory to Ukraine." And the Russians are saying that, in fact, this is the modification of the Nazi notorious Heil Hitler thing. And this is, first of all, this does not even sound like it. This has a completely different meaning. This is no Heil, no to other, no greeting of any person or something like that. And second of all, the story of the phrase goes back far beyond the Second World War. It was the first time it was very extensively used was the 1917-1921 Liberation War, and the origin per se of the phrase is credited to Taras Shevchenko, to Ukrainian famous poet from mid-19th century. So there is virtually no connection of this specific phrase to the Nazi Germany. Yes, and the last myth that we looked into is that Ukraine forgot about the victory over Nazism, and this is something very similar to the myth I have already been talking about, because Russia implies that Ukraine should be thankful for this. Also, that Russia allegedly and the USSR allegedly liberated Ukraine, but I mean from Nazism, but Russians do not say that, as I have already mentioned, about a quarter of the Red Army was comprised of Ukrainian soldiers, of those drafted from Ukrainian territories, and Ukraine. And in absolute numbers, that translated in about 7 million representatives of Ukraine. And the losses of Ukrainian territories, of Ukrainian population, amounted to about 3.5 to 4 million. So it is not even a question that Ukraine is thankful or not thankful to the USSR when it comes to combating Nazism. It's that Ukrainians were namely those, among others, who fought against Nazism. So this is how this, as simple as that, you know, this myth can be debunked. And as for myths, that's it. If you have any questions about about further details of this myth or how they can be debunked, I'm free to answer them. Those are the most, because we're limited in our resources, we targeted to choose the sixth most elaborated, most disseminated myth amidst the Russian media or the Russian segment of world media like Facebook. And if anybody is interested in a detailed analysis, because in fact we have come up with an around 100-page analysis of this, I have a couple of copies with me in English and Ukrainian, so
okay, Maxim, now you have also electronic copy. You send me links, and we disseminate to participants of our event, and also to our colleague from EU in English version.
Sure.
And as you know, this topic, very hot topic in the social media. We have a lot of aggressive discussion in the social media, but not only Russia and Ukraine, but also in the Poland social media regarding Ukrainian nationalism and power, etc. And we discuss how to influence relation between aggressive people from Poland and Russia. It's also interesting topic how this matter is related in the discussion social media, where it is border to normal discussion, professional discussion, and social discussion. What you can comment this?
First of all, when we look to some problems in historical realm that exist to the west of Ukrainian borders, only I think one or maybe two of this myth of these topics can be pertinent to for instance Poland, because Poland does not deny Ukrainian sovereignty or Ukrainian statehood as such. It is not a question. So yes, we have our differences on how we look on these Ukrainian organizations like OUN or UPAR. We can be speaking about specifics like who had which ideas or who fought who, but this is not something that debunks the idea of Ukrainian statehood, or that Ukraine should be inferior to Poland because of that, or something like that, or to Hungary if we speak, you know, about other Ukrainian neighbors. So this is in no way diminishment. It is a discussion, but in no way diminishment of Ukraine as such.
Okay. This colleague from Compact Project have any question? Ask it. Colin is in contact, but we have from other computers. they can hear our presenter.
Yes.
Maybe later have some question.
Okay.
We move to the next presentation. Give the microphone to Mrs. Elina Shnurkota-Bokova. We have another approach. We have special methodology to analyze. In general, in our event, we have representative different professional group. And we also discuss not only about specific media, we also discuss about internet content, social media, and how people can use, and can we have some regulation. And we also need some tools for analyzing. And you, Elina, have a very interesting presentation. And I switch to your presentation.
Before switching, I represent myself. I'm in media business since '95. And since 14th, I'm very deeply comes to analyze the hybrid war, and a lot of things we did by hands. And 2 years ago, we started project with name of Attack Index, which is a really big data monitoring and analyze system, which make automatical determination. Thank you very much. It's very hard to speak when somebody speak around you. Guys, it was devoted to you. Yeah, thank you. And this system analyzed big data, thousands publications, thousands websites, and also social media. And my purpose here to represent maybe culture of analyze and working with big data, because it's very important for today. Because when I read something like we analyze 100 articles and make ratings for them, of course it's very interesting, but I every time want to know big picture, because we understand details when we're looking for big pictures. And how deeply we can come, it depends how we can build future. Because for hybrid war, the main things, it's how to get winner. It means how to get future communications, which will be more positive, more attractive, and more eatable for people. Yeah. Yeah, I have this, but I have every time problem with this kind of things. And you know, some 100 years ago, our civilization comes to the gigayen, and to get winner with plug, and comes to the industrial fast. It was transmission of fast transmission to the new society. Now we comes to information society. Maybe you know, I'm sure that the base to winner and to positive evolution, it's how to make media gigayen. And media gigayen from the small guys to the big guys to the politics. And I think example which I will show to you today, it also depends of media gigayen, because now we have, you know, infodemia, and that's why we are just have registered users here online. And congregation world which we have, I think the big problem for Ukraine, and big problem also for many international markets and countries and politics, that we don't understand how classify these hybrid treatments and how we can work with every of them. And I want to remind you that in this very complicated world where Mr. Huilo comes with the same values, with the same sentences about human rights, but using against, in fact, Western civilization, we need to understand every treatments which we have. And every threat, if we say about military action, it's more or less understandable, and we every time said that, okay, it's for professionals, we have army, we have military guys. But for hybrid, you see the list, and it's not limited list, it's open list, has a lot of very different things, from terrorism, from formation of coalition to the trade wars. And every time we have information warfare and cybersecurity actions. And what is the difference between all other kind of things? That they have own scenario for different target groups, and they also support every part of hybrid threats which we have. Yeah, it means that we have understand every time what threats we have, what information flow around, what cyber action could be happens around. We can to be more detailed as possible for every threat which we have. And for many our different military structures, and for citizen structures, of course, and for citizen society, we don't have even list to which responsible somebody. For many state organizations, the main thing is the names. Yeah, if somebody say bad about prime minister, okay, it's hybrid war started, you know. Yes, of course, it's like that, but we have many others. And for police, for example, we have one list of threats, and for army, we have another list of threats. Some kind of things where they're responsible, we can find in the legal system, in the laws about different military sections. But we don't have any systematical job on these questions in every of these military ministries or departments or something like that. And when why it's important for us, because when they go deeply to problem, when they want to decide any problems, they don't understand how collect statistics, how monitor some problems or topics or etc. And time to time they think that if they will put a monitoring system wording like discrimination of somebody, it immediately will be answers from this monitoring system that yes, we started discriminate since today and you can monitor us next 2 years, you know, but it's not happens. And of course, for NGO, for all social activists, it's also important to understand what they try to follow, what they try to monitor. I mean that there is problem not just maybe Ukraine it's more experienced, I hope, in this kind of war which we have today. And we are, of course, example for another country how necessary to build this system, and system of statistics which we have to know about problems, and system of monitoring system which we have to know how to use and what we are using. It's very important question when we go to the hybrid war and would like to get winner maybe in 2 or 3 parts of it. I said that I don't have experience with this kind of things. Yeah, like that maybe. When we are already, yeah, I think it was jump. Yeah, I want to show how we go to monitoring system to content analyze. Maybe, you know, maybe I'm old, start to be old, but it's really not good when somebody make show around you. Because I try to have connection with eyes which are looking at this table. Yeah, I try to show how we go to decomposition on the example. It's really not easy example about cybersecurity, cyber threat, if we want to understand how it looks in information space. And you know that we have very big list, and it's also not limited, it's open here, about cyber operations which happens in our life, from interruption to confidential information, from financial problems to DDoS attacks, etc. Yeah, it's the left side, you can see this big list. And for understanding how it works in information content, we have understand what information support needs these actions, what information support could be before, what information support or reaction, of course, will be when operation will happen, and also what result of it. And after, when we can analyze this information support, we can come to topics. We will try to make comparable list of information support to concrete topics which we could found in internet or in interviews, which will comment problem for cybersecurity or many other problems. And in this topic, which related to different kind of information support, we will try to find keywords. And there is a semantic core of cyber threat, which we can make on the first 2 levels. Of course, it could be 2, 3, 5, 20 levels, but here it's just first 2, which is already make wording for us how we can try to search in different systems. Of course, I will search in my system, and for every risk or threat, we have some related words: discreditation, compromission, hackers, spam, infection, infrastructure, etc. If we make list of these words and add word cyber, as a result, we will have in our system, for example, there is picture from last 5 or 6 years about this wording. We will got I don't remember, maybe here is more than 1 million publications with this wording, and every maximum related to the big attacks which was, and we can find how much this attacks was, who wrote about that, etc. And what is important here, that for energetical black door, for example, some professionals found announcement of this black door before some months before energetic black door, which was in Ukraine. Professionals found publication in USA press which announced this black door. And it means if we understand topic, we can analyze not just who follow and who make hype, for example, not in the good place, you know, because in our topic of our roundtable, I think fake news and fake news as a topic for society, it's not so complicated, because we know how to make foundation of falsification, but manipulation, speculation, it's much more dangerous. They push society much more effective than just fakes, which distributed fake accounts or bot systems, etc. And if we know our problem, for example, cybersecurity problem, how our society react for this wording, how, for example, people who even want to make positive PR can do it negative PR if they will every time discuss and explain how bad our cybersecurity professionals, that they can secure, or they don't know about a lot of уязвимостей in their system, yeah, and as a result, it will be a very complicated way. And if we want to understand what level and how to found announcement, we have to go very deeply to this kind of topic. But for big picture, you see, every maximum has absolutely understandable operation, which was in Ukrainian real infrastructure and how it was reflected in information society. And our system, which I use for this kind of things, they operate 20 years retro database for more than 10,000 websites for 64 countries. And it's not just monitoring system. I'm sure that there is already old school, because to look just fixation dates and quantity, it's something very old, and it's not an analytical tool at all. And that's why the system was born at first, how system which we did by hand, as I told, to understand how Maidan escalation was happened, how military management was discredited in 14-15, the start of our war. And after that we did this automatization, and it's a lot of features there which make analyzing, and I will show in the example of coronavirus. Yeah, it's a list of our sources. And of course, if websites, it's more stable. Social networks, it's normally doing for clients, because we don't want to save all Facebook, all of contact. It's unproductive way, I could say. And also our system can found information operation, which is very important, because news distribution, it's very depends from who interested in distribution of this news. And if somebody support or make hysteric or paying for content, it's every time mathematic schablon, like we described there. Information operations, people normally doing, even if they do their own press conference, it's also information operation to change first entrance information flow to result of information flow. And if we will come to internet traffic and analyze by schablon with information operation, we can understand how, why, and whom was interested in unnatural distribution information. And our system makes this automatically, and just some, I think 1 or 2 days, and everybody can make professional how we work with these kind of things. And coronavirus, I think it's very interesting for today. I analyzed yesterday actually, and before yesterday, internet traffic, and you can see here English traffic. You see the attack index size, it's just 4 or 5 balls from 10. And I can explain why, because it's just grow information without big jumps. That's why it's not so dangerous as we think. Yeah, and different pictures. There is different pool of dates. First of one English, second one all database which we have. After that social network, after that TV radio, after that just Ukraine and just Russia. You see it's much more or less close, and what is interesting is that red line which we are putting, you can find in every picture on the left side, is there is maximum attack index indicator, maximum, and it's belonging to 21st January. When actually information from China come. Because attack index is not about maximum, it's about resonance and how it was more resonanceable dates and distribution information. And for all media, for all pool of dates, there is end of January. Just for TV, there is 5 of March. And we see that after this red line, which in March for TV data pool, the maximum in absolute figures for social media comes immediately after. It means that TV before 1 week prepared people to eat, to panic, to hype for this topic. I think that it's not finished, of course. I have something in my previous years with biological chemistry, and I am seriously about viruses, but for me it's infodemia, but not still pandemia from medical point of view, because governments and medicals, etc., they react more to the content and to the emotion which people provide now. In China, yesterday was closed hospitals, and I know exactly that one of the results of Chinese activity was change political opponents in Wuhan to Communist Party people. And after changing of the mayor of Wuhan, they said that infection go down. You see, and maybe it's also conspirology, but our emotional reaction and how it works now worldwide, of course I will be happy if it will be still 1, 2, 3,000 people who was infected, but people already ready to the big problem, you know, and information flow very well comes here. Our system, I described to you shortly how we classified hybrid threads, and our system, guy before was more later than myself, you know. And in these pictures, it's different reflection which people can find in our system to understand how big manipulation and how big prediction for negative information, because we have classified our sources from the point of quality of editorial job, especially for Ukraine and Russia, which we are sure more important now for us and our clients. It's also how unique content on websites, and you know there is fake news and manipulation, very like sites in which nothing about unique content, for example, or they renovate content maybe 1 or 2, 3 times. We also learn our mathematical work for readership calculations. That's why every query has audience figures. And what is interesting from my point of view to coronavirus, that in all query, when we have result, it's just 4% unique content, and it's more than 50% content which make content generator websites which don't have any editorial policy, and they make like media interpretation, yeah, interpreted. They don't real editorials, and it means that content which people edited in specific this question was very artificial for distribution, and it was no professionals. And in next slide, the main idea is that 23rd place has medical rubrication in the topic of coronavirus. Normally it's news one, it's political website, and medical and health care website, it's just number 23. Normally for normal problem, it's normally another distribution, be sure. They have it's about the information operation in January. We explain what kind of website, what kind of sujet. It's automatical machine learning also, which provide every sujet. I very quickly, don't worry. Every sujet has who was first, how it was distributed in different websites, and what kind of distributors and participants in this information operation was. And what is also important, why analytic important, because you know we have absolute figure grow, but if you go to the deviation, we see that deviation maximum was in January. And it means that all this operation, etc., was very concentrated in the start of this campaign, I could say, yeah, like advertisement or PR campaign. And also first place has Telegram in distribution role of this development. And you know, it's very interesting when you can look how it run around and how it run in big picture. And also some networks between websites, who was participate, how, etc. And I could say the cognitive maps were forgotten in Ukrainian, even professional society. We make automatical for 20 pictures, but we also build a connection, for example, for candidate to president of Ukraine in the previous year, and showed what Russian pool of Russians was belonged to every candidate, and it was really interesting surprises. The same was started when we analyzed Maidan, when every speaker has own event and own media which distributed different topic. Yeah, and at that time we showed that the Russian hand was not just in Kiselov or Solovyov on TV, but Russian hand was belonged to every escalation with absolutely concrete websites with still in alive. And theoretical comment to that very necessary to have a rating of threads which we have, the maximum utilizations for topics, keywording, and indication. Very important to know regulations for organization, for projects, to understand when we have crisis, when we don't have crisis, when we have jump, when we have run, because all these things, it's about future. We need professionals, and we need, of course, professional cooperation with global players in this market, I mean Facebook, YouTube, etc. Because yes, they have also these all mathematics tools and they can do it, it's much more active. I am absolutely not support our Ukrainian initiatives which try all human society and citizenship which more or less works in Ukraine to put to the legal system how they want it in the law about media or against falsification, against fake news. But regulation on the level of project and responsibilities is very important because we have to save our values and because we have to be effective in hybrid winners. Yeah, and we have to be not just asymmetric but effective, and that's why we have understand our context and future. Coronavirus will be stable, it means that it will be grow, and situation tomorrow will be the same with today. It's our prediction patterns, our system. We can follow this, and we can make this for different dates. And we are looking for partnership, any kind of cooperation, and we'll be happy to make some money. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Elena. It's a very interesting presentation. We have time. Halina Pastuk did not come here. We have time to our. But we have questions for our partner. Of course, if we short summarize your presentation, we have two things. First, cybersecurity. If you don't prevent your account in social media, then some hackers can put information from your name, then you have some problem.
It's a little problem.
Not little problem. For your personal imagining, also personal reputation, you can have some problem. And next, of course, we have in coronavirus, we have a very good case about disinformation, malinformation, and misunderstanding, and some exponential disinformation is dissemination in social media. Of course, I obtain every 10 minutes my colleague in the Viber or Messenger or other communication. Do not come to Brussels. I have visit to Brussels for next week, and don't come to Brussels, come abroad. It's not only publication social media, we obtain message from your colleague, it's also influence for you. But we have switch. Huh? Helena is, sorry, I don't know. Okay, Helena is a short presentation online. But we have question from, switch to the. Я говорила більше, ніж 20 хвилин. Треба. Пізніше почали. Okay, we start lunch 10 minutes late, no problem. We have time during the lunch to discuss internet. Lucas, are you ready?
Okay. Yes, sorry, because there is like 5 seconds delay on Facebook, so I thought Ivan is still talking. Yeah, so thank you very much for those very interesting presentations. I would like to refer to both Maxim Patenko and Elena Tabakova. Very interesting presentations. First, I would like to refer to Maxim. I think this is very interesting angle, the historical angle to fake news. I think it's hardly under addressed. Personally, I didn't see much work in this field. Most of the debunking and the information fact-checking and disinformation battling initiatives, they focus on the current state of affairs, current events, whatever is true now. There is no initiatives really looking back at history and yeah, what is valid historically, for instance, especially if the content is offensive. And as I said, like there are posts which are attacking the Ukrainian state or validity of Ukrainian state, which would be considered like if it was personal attack, it would be defamation or in these categories, right? So I think it's also reflected, but it is somehow reflected in our findings. Basically, there is lack of solid regulations in terms of disinformation and implication. So if such a post is generated, and regardless even of historical truth, but if it's attacking, let's say, Ukraine as a state, or is in any way offensive towards Ukrainian state, that should have some legal implications. That should not be done in public. And as we all agree, this digital sphere becomes more and more a public sphere. In some countries, so in terms of what is out there and the legal frameworks existing, so some countries like Ireland and Sweden have laws like defamation law and threatening law in place. Basically, that is at personal level, but I think that should be extended exactly to, let's say, entities, like state entities. So what does it mean if you speak offensively about a country? That should be also addressed. And but this angle, which is the historical angle, I think is even more interesting because it encompasses several issues. Like one is exactly how to battle this kind of statements, because to start with, they are offensive, and second of all, how to ensure that they can be also disproved because they are not based on any scientifically proven historical truth. So that's on Maxim's presentation, and in terms of Elena, I think it's also interesting to look at this from the perspective of data and this very rigid analysis that sometimes we have those more sophisticated campaigns. This is not just simple bots or simple accounts that provide malinformation or disinformation. We talk about, let's say, more sophisticated operations of manipulation. And those are really, really hard to detect. So going back to the historical context, historical truth, this is practically impossible to disprove at the technical level because that requires knowledge from historians and experts. So AI cannot do that. But even in the latter, like if we have more sophisticated campaigns, manipulative campaigns, this is also very difficult technologically, I suppose, to detect. Maybe we can identify some patterns of behavior, but there was an interesting article I look at how there is a combination of bots, of psychologists, and several layers of people involved in kind of creating this super trolls where they strategically attack, let's say, entities, could be countries, could be business entities, and they are always 5 steps ahead. But yeah, again, I would like to congratulate on a very good conversation here, because I think those issues are highly underrepresented and underestimated. Again, just to sum up, I would say today it's the concern is mainly about current news. And also, there is not much depth given into investigation whether the information can be can have some further manipulative goal aim at the end of the day. And in terms of coronavirus, I think this is a study on its own, I suppose, how much, so Ellen again mentioned that 50% of the information is not really verified yet, it's propagated. And that should be tamed down. And you can see like there is a lot of messages spinning around on WhatsApp, people passing not true information about how to battle coronavirus or what we can expect. And that creates panic. And that could be also used as a cyber war, right? So if you want to destabilize country or place, or you can you play the game of fear, right? And then this can have strong implications, again, if we talk further on the line. So not really a question, but I just wanted to congratulate everybody on this really good conversation. Thank you.
Well, next.
I can't hear you, sorry.
Так, микрофон включи.
I can't hear.
Не, микрофон выключен.
Yes, now I can hear.
Okay. Helena, is it Helena in contact? Or we switch only later? Okay. Okay, sorry. Technical communication. Helena didn't come here, but she want to give some presentation, maybe later after you. Okay, next we have a very interesting presentation from Special Tools Portal Health SME. From our point of view, it's very logical, your presentation after this information, how we can validate. Okay, I'm ready to switch the window, and is it on?
Yes,
okay,
yes,
okay.
it's on.
Okay, you can present yourself.
It works. Okay, hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Anastasia Shirina, and I am the founder of online platform for journalists and experts called Helps Me. It was developed specifically for Ukraine, but there are analogs in the Western world. And I think that we are doing important work, and I will try to explain you what exactly we do and how you can participate as experts or as journalists. And also I will focus specifically on our contribution into democracy building, to counteracting fakes, what we do to defend human rights, such basic fundamentals as freedom of speech, freedom of self-expression, and we'll also feature a couple of regional stories that focus on corruption scandals in different regions of Ukraine, and we'll be happy to address all of your queries. So what is Helps Me? Helps Me is a software program that unites journalists and experts. Journalists come and leave their queries, while experts track queries on their inboxes, emailed, and respond to queries that they, where they feel they are true experts, where they have sufficient knowledge, expertise, or education, and of course have time, because this is very important for experts. Experts usually are working very hard, and it's hard for them to find at least 10 or 15 minutes to address a specific query from a journalist. So that is why we are attempting to have a very big base of people who are collaborating with media. At the moment, we already have 5,500 people. Their base is growing, and over 1,000 journalists cooperate with us on a daily basis. During 1 week, we receive from 20 up to 50 queries at the moment, and also we have examples of success stories with international media, such as Chinese agency Xinhua, Amo Mama, this is the site for American women, and also Nasha Niva, a Belarusian newspaper. They were especially interested in Ukraine during election campaigns, and were interested into the politics of the country that is going on right now, because the country is attracting significant attention from the whole world regarding these scandals, schemes, whatever, and also laws and amendments to these laws. So how exactly do we help journalists? Journalists come to the system because they are able to save a lot of time and energy. They look for sources, of course, on their own as well, but sometimes they need a very narrow, specific specialist who can elaborate on a certain issue, and with our help, it is very easily done. They also are exposed to a variety of views, so we do not limit journalists to just one specific opinion. opinion. Journalist forms a query and he can receive, or she, one answer up to 40 or even 50, and then choose the best ones and feature them in their stories. And also journalists form ties with people with whom they can collaborate further outside of the platform. They can collaborate on Facebook, via email, personally, whatever way is convenient for the journalist. And a good expert is really valued by them. So we help people establish ties, not just via the internet, but also during offline communication. How do we help experts? Experts come to the platform because they want additional publicity opportunities for themselves as public figures or for the organizations they represent. And in this respect, Helps Me is helping each NGO and willing expert to do a little bit more, to cooperate more, to have more media mentions, and this translates into bigger profits if we are talking about business or business associations, and it translates into stronger reputation if we are speaking about civil society entities. So this is why they are here. Helps Me, as I said, is used by over 1,000 Ukrainian journalists. So we collaborate with top national agencies such as Ukrinform, Union, Liga Business Inform. There are also newspapers such as Сегодня. Сегодня is now available only online, but it continues to be known and it is very respectful. Fakty and Commentary. Then there are a number of niche media outlets such as Agronews, Zampolit, young media outlets that are just starting out but already have a good readership, such as Nachasi. We work with in regional media outlets such as Western Ukrainian Informational Agency, Devis Info, Facts Zaporizhia, a number of city websites such as Kherson website, and also we work with TV channels. 24th channel, ICTV, Novy channel. So the base is extensive, and everyone who writes at least a personal blog and wants to feature some expert, he can access and without no problem get a commentary from a respected professional. Here you can see the examples of experts who have joined. As I said, it's over 4,500 people. There are, no, it's media. Here you can see the experts. So these are think tanks, international programs, then civil society organizations. There are a number of governmental bodies who are quite open. Not all of them, but some of them are open and provide commentary. There are also business associations and private businesses of different size. You can see, yes, Varto Communications Agency, a lot of marketing and PR agencies, job portal Headhunter, private clinic Dobrobut, Asset Protection Association. Independent experts also can access and say, yes, I do know, I can position myself as an expert, I have sufficient knowledge. Usually it's based on appropriate education or appropriate job experience. So there are political scientists, private attorneys, psychologists are especially popular right now. So you can see it's quite wide. Examples of success stories. We call success stories materials that were produced with the help of Helps Me experts and journalists. Why it's success? Because journalists, they write impartial stories. So when the stories are paid for, you will not be featured there. So the expert who has paid for this appearance will be featured. And so these stories are not paid for. These stories are impartial, objective, very wide, very in-depth, in great detail. And for the expert, of course, success story is just because they have +1 media mention, and for the entire Ukrainian society, this is a success story because we receive better information. We become better informed about issues of current importance. So I will focus on investigations, for instance, what has been done. Mykolaiv Center for Investigative Reporting, they were interested in the issue of how political parties spend money during election campaigns, how much is spent on agitators, on advertising materials, both printed and online, like Facebook. And they have found that several representatives of political parties are the major unofficial sponsors of these political forces. access. So this is a regional investigative center, and they have found Helps Me particularly useful because for them it's quite difficult to reach out to top tier specialists in this. They have communicated with lawyers, with civil activists, and as a result they received such a story which we can also access and enjoy. Operation Imitation, selective justice, a very big problem for Ukraine when the law exists, but sometimes it is applied, sometimes it is overlooked. Typical, yes. So what happened here? They found out that in Mykolaiv Oblast there are land plots which are located next to the seashore, and small plots are they are currently in the private hands, but they should be returned to the state, and they are, while sizable land plots are overlooked. So people who are influential, really rich, they are left untouched, and the impunity flourishes in this field. So this is what they found out, and also spoke with the experts from Helps Me to produce this material. Texty.org.ua, that same interesting topic about elections, about the kingdom of black cash, how money circulates during elections. Very influential publication, and they have also found Helps Me particularly useful. Then moving on to the next slide, yes, U-Control. You probably have heard about this system before. It's business intelligence. You can check subcontractors or counterparties. So they, before elections, wrote a story about the links of top candidates for president and business world. So they were interested in what industries they represent, do any of them have entrepreneurial relatives, friends, and how this all can influence the political future of Ukraine. Valeria Pechenik, editor-in-chief at Divisinfo, she is currently on maternity leave, but she coordinated with us from the very beginning, and she once said that she was pleasantly surprised because with the help of the system she was able to get the ball rolling with a regional journalistic investigation which focused specifically on local public procurement. And she said that it was very hard to start this because they have a limited staff, and to start this investigation they had a lot of data, to analyze a lot of data, a lot of laws, and without external help it would be impossible to start and to complete it. So she thanked us publicly, and now we go from presentation to presentation featuring this quote. Anti-corruption. Remember this situation with the High Anti-Corruption Court and the scandalous amendment to their presidential decree. They said that they spoke with attorneys, with lawmakers, and received several interesting quotes. The system, as you see, is open, is accessible, and everyone can participate there. So we invite different people from political circles, from civil society, from volunteers, activists, academia. So everyone can comment, propose their take on the story, and the journalist is the one who decides whether your opinion is worthy to be shared or whether you are not worthy to be shared. And no censorship from any side, so self-regulated platform. Human rights. Gender equality, does it even exist in Ukraine, and why do we need it? Also an interesting topic was published on the website on 24th channel with the help of several experts from Helps Me, including representative from the job portal Headhunter Ukraine, Katerina Krivorukchenko, and lawyer Alena Zaitsova. Regional development. Chemical industry plant in Sumy denied to disclose the data on environmental tax, and this was the topic which was interesting for their local readership and for the publication. And interestingly, our expert also decided to respond. The head of Climate Network, Ilya Yeremenko, provided his useful insight, and as a result, the story was released and attracted significant attention. Our experience in counteracting fakes. Here, an interesting story. So journalists sometimes they publish fakes, and they're stating, how can you help me with it, to elaborate on it? So can you provide additional information? So journalists are convinced that this is the real fact. And here the experts come and they say, no, this is not a truthful story, this is fake, and here is the link to the legislation appropriate or to the data you can trust, and this is how myths are debunked on the spot. Another story is when just there is a conversation and the journalist, he knows that this is a fake, but he needs some specialist who can prove as a competent specialist in a certain field. And this is how experts join, historians, and how they help elaborate stories and make something, you know, very beautiful, the beautiful piece, scientifically correct piece, which can be then enjoyed by the Ukrainian public. So here is the first instance, first example, Free Radio. This is a recent material published on the 1st of January of the current year. It was about a prominent political figure, Stepan Bandera. You know that he is a controversial figure, and some people say that he was dedicated nationalist. Other people said that he was cruel with children, and his supporters were cruel with children. And the prominent historian of our times, you can see Igor Bigun. He is the editor of Исторична Правда. Probably you know all this website. He contacted the journalist via Helps Me and said that all these three statements, they are all false, they are all fakes, and they do not have the right to exist in modern Ukraine. So the first was that Bandera was a convinced Hitler supporter and admirer. The second was that Bandera is perceived to be a soldier of the Nazi Germany. And the last myth was that Bandera and his supporters were together ruthlessly killing children, which is absolutely not good and not correct. And these statements are widely used by Russia as a propaganda, just to state that nationalists are bad people and cruel people. Part of the dialogue on Helps Me, just to show you how these myths are debunked on the spot. So the reporter of Divisinfo, Western Ukrainian agency, she said that she approached the system to learn more about the forestry industry in Ukraine, and she said, hey, how can we make forestry industry profitable? So that was her statement. And a very narrow expert who represents the union of forestry workers, he said, well, we can think about the ways how to improve its profitability, but it's already profitable. And during the 6 months of 2018, the workers have made significant progress, and the net profit amounts now to 256 million. So this is what he said. Yes, I'm finishing up. International media and Helps Me. So here just brief overview of how we represent Ukraine on the international arena. Xinhua News Agency, after elections, they published an analytical story of why certain candidates were far behind and why Zelensky has won. And political scientist Kirill Yevseyev chipped in and help to provide this information to the public. And Nasha Niva, Belarusian newspaper, they were particularly curious about why our pop stars and comedians are so anxious to enter Ukrainian politics and change their career path in the middle of their lives. An interesting story attracted a lot of eyeballs, and you can see Lilia Brudnitska, expert of the Center for Structural Political Science Weber, has provided her opinion. Yes, gender equality, human rights featured on the international website. Amo Mama, why do so many women stay in abusive relationships and how to stop this? Our Ukrainian psychologist on popular international English language website. So this is type of publicity every one of you can get if you decide to collaborate with yes, just a brief. This story it's about military regulations and military service published on Onion, and you can see the size of its popularity. So more than 85,000 of views just now, so very cool. Yes, this is our stats, not really important to you, just one thing that I have to tell you. We know that at least 1,500 materials were released due to such type of collaboration, which we have established to date. We suspect that the number is bigger, but unfortunately not every journalist sends feedback. But this is what we know from feedback. And according to our estimations, at least 5 million people have read these materials or viewed these stories in the videos, so quite interesting and quite influential. So global goals of the project, we think that first of all we modernize the industry of media communications in Ukraine. We help become be up to standards of what is used internationally. So Helps Me is not a very brand new thing. It's used there are analogs like Haro help reporter out in the Western world, but Haro is not effective for Ukrainians, and we wanted to do something for ourselves because here the competition for experts is lower and the competition for journalists for a good expert opinion is lower, and that's why it works for people. And the second, we want to level out the playing field for experts. So if, let's say, 10 years ago, budgets decided, yes, who will be in the media, also connections decided, now it's all fair competition and everyone can participate. Yes, I said that we strengthen democracy and freedom of speech and improve the overall quality of journalistic materials. We'll be happy if you participate and if you ask your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. It's too hard to interrupt you. It was interesting presentation. Your presentation for me is also interesting for the next topic in the EU program. We talk about citizen science, citizen competence. We involve citizens in the communication with the expert. Every citizen can be journalist, every citizen can be expert, every citizen can be scientist. Is it real or no? Is it fantastic? Now we have next presentation from scientists. Also, we have some problems with scientists. Of course, scientists can present dissertation, scientific work, but if we need short comment or we need very short information for citizen, it's too hard to obtain this level. It's more easy to do big lecture for 1 hour or big, but I hope, Yulia, we have another case in you. And our colleague maybe in end of today. Okay, okay, I switch for your presentation. I hope you will.
You're right about short presentation, and it's a little bit like prejudice about scientists. They're so nerd, and they can only give lectures. And I'm not only a scientist, I also work with students, with youth, and the age of my youth is 18 and 21 years old, and they clever, industry, ambitious. But once upon a time, I decided to see how they consume information and to see the level of the media literacy, or can they spot real or manipulative content from real one. And before doing this, I was very calm, and I thought that I had nothing to do, had nothing to worry about, because my students are clever, young person. But after testing, I understood that, okay, I have reasons to worry. And now, okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. And this is the first step of my test. So more than 50% decided that they can spot fake and real news. And but the first shock when I saw answers on the question, what criteria do you use to identify fake news? And the main criteria was intuition. So I was really shocked. Intuition, just to check fake news or not fake, manipulative, not manipulative. And only 5.7% you try to use alternative sources to see and to check information. And 23.2% rely on their friends' posts on social networks. And so it's a real situation which needs our attention. So next step, I decided to identify what is the real level of my students' media literacy. And so after passing some special tests and exercises, I calculated that about 60% of them couldn't answer, couldn't spot real and fake news in most cases. So as the reality, we have such a difference like 62 and 9%. And if you think about it, it's a group of risk. So our youth, our ambitious, our clever youth students, so they can't spot manipulative and fake news. So they are like potential target for manipulation. And the next question was, what should I do with it? And media literacy and humanitarian aspects of cybersecurity are part of my scientific interest. So I decided to implement training. So, but I would like a scientist, of course, I would like to invent something new or add something new for my students, not only traditional courses. So, my training consists of 3 parts. First one was IREX blended learning course. So, I was chosen as a coordinator, as a facilitator of this course, and we have 5 face-to-face classes and online course, approximately 30% of face-to-face and 70% is online course. And this is like the main course, the basic course, traditional course. Students where students can clarify some basic information how to spot fake and manipulative content. The next one, as my students are. By the way, it's very important to mention that why I decided to change the situation, because I work at the Department of Cybersecurity. And I would like to live in safe state and be sure of safety of our cybersecurity. So that's why it's my duty to give my students some information about media literacy, because it's our future of our security. So next step was I decided to implement a course how to check pictures. So as you know, there are a lot of manipulative content concerning pictures. It can be used for the other content, or can be added some details or removed some details, and we use resources to verify images. It's free resources. It can be used on any gadget, like our mobile telephone and computer, and it's very useful. And we practice these approximately. We have with one group we have 5 classes, and with the rest group we have 4 classes, as they were students were more talented. Okay. And it's just as an example. So I found one picture, and please, students, can you tell me, is it correct picture or not? And can you prove me? And you see my students, my clever students answered me, okay, it's not the real one. And what resources did you use? TNI and the photo forensics. Well, super, 12 points. And the next step is implementation of author's methodology of psycholinguistic analysis of the text. It's my methodology. It not has only scientific scientific side, but also practical side. Sometimes I have some request to analyze text using this technology, and I use my technology, but very short variant, because my students are not linguists or not psychologists. So I give them only some main points, and it helps them to determine the purposes of the text, the author's hidden motive, also a correlation between linguistic means, some linguistic means, and how can they influence on public, on the readers. And also we identify if there is any evidence of hate speech. What is hate speech, how to see it, and how to react. Okay, and the last, just I would like to show one of the example of my training. So I divide my students into two groups, researchers and creators. The first creators, they should create text and with different tasks, manipulative task, or you should show that this information is correct. And the researchers should analyze and give their conclusion if this text is manipulative, fake, or not. And I think that such tasks will help students to see how can manipulative news be built, and when they see the process of creation news, it will be more easily for them to distinguish, to spot real and unreal, and to be more ready to see manipulative content. Okay. And after all these exercises and trainings, students passed tests, and I was very glad to see the results. So their level of media literacy has improved. After the training, 79.6% of students agreed that they should use special additional resources to check information, and 63.4% of students can spot it real and fake news in most cases. Okay, and also we discuss them why manipulative and fake news are so successful, and we are talking about emotional sphere, that if they see any post which influence on the emotions, so please help, or look at this poor girl and something like this, it's like the first sign of be precautious. And one of my favorite example, my students send me, people who are late are more successful and live longer. So, and this is like proveness of scientists, and this is my favorite phrase, ученые доказали, scientists proved. And my student seriously sent me this information, and he was sure that, okay, I will live longer and I will be more successful in my life. Okay, so what about our plan? I have already mentioned that we right now we started our work with humanitarian aspects of cybersecurity. It means social engineering, it analyzing phishing and letters. So our future work will connect with analyzing text, and I'm going to implement my methodology. Yeah, okay, that's all.
Yes, thank you. We in time.
No, not very boring. No.
Super. We don't have medical vaccine, but we have psychological. Now we spent 10 minutes for Talina Pastuch, is online, and after this we finish our presentation, but our colleague from Compact Projects have some short comment to the end of this. Okay, switch. Okay, and then we come into...
Yes, I'll see the camera, I'm sorry. So, sorry. I'm speaking today from home because I have a sick leave or something like it at home. So I wanted to join a round table today, and I would like to tell you a little bit about our work. So I'm a deputy director of Text.org.ua. It's a mix of media and think tank. And we had a few projects in the last 3-4 years connected with manipulative and fake news, also connected with social networks and junk websites and as mainstream media. So with the first our project we have done 4 years ago, it was connected with the detection of the 2,000 of the fake accounts on Facebook. For this project we had a special dump of the information, and it was more as an investigation, and we have detected that how it works in Ukraine actually on Facebook, but now our work is currently connected more with clickbait websites, junk websites. So now we have in the list more than 400 websites. We have started with 100 websites. It was a database that we have detected. It mainly has an audience in Ukraine more than 50 million visits per month. It's not a visitors, but they are coming regularly to this website. For example, when I speak about the media outlet Ukrainska Pravda, it has audience 15 million only. Now we have in our list already 400 websites. We have also developed a special model by using AI. This model has detected the manipulative content, and when we speak about the methodology, we took mainly the websites that have more than 25% of manipulative content, because mainly this websites in Ukraine has different type of content connected even with political questions or any other questions, but for us it was very important this political or social questions that are mainly contain manipulations and fakes. We have done a special focus group. It was more than 10 big media outlets from Ukraine, use editors or editors in chief, and with help of them we have detected actually the 7 types of manipulative news. And what is interesting now we have developed a special dashboard. On this dashboard you can see the actually escalations of different topics in a weekly perspective. So it was established like already 9 months ago, but on this dashboard you can see the analysis of 100,000 of manipulative news, actually sorry, of the 100 news, and according to our algorithm, more or less than 4,000 news weekly will be manipulative, and this dashboard contains topics and meta topics. It could be different topics like Ukraine is a failed state, it could be nationalism, Zelensky, or any other topic. It could be also coronavirus, which will be used actually also as a manipulative content on these websites. We have also now we developed our algorithm, and now we can also see the percent of the fake news or manipulative content on the mainstream media. What else? We have done special browser extension, and with this, it calls Fake Crunch. And with the help of this browser extension, you can find out the fake news, and you can resend this news to our organization, and we will retrain this algorithm to develop a new tool for the manipulative or fake news detection. What else? We have done also a very interesting investigation. I will definitely share with you the link. It was connected with Novi Sanjari topic. We have done it together. Okay. Thank you for the question. So we have done it together with Liga and Vox Ukraine, and it won Sigma Award as the best news applications this year. I have a question here about the manipulative. Yes, it's a great question for me. What is manipulation and what is fake? When we speak about the manipulations, under the manipulation, it could be emotional content, it could be reprinted news, but with some changes. So we have detected actually 7 types of the manipulative news, and I can share also with you not only the links but also the presentation where you can see all these types and how we have determined it. Because when we speak about the fake, it's a huge question what is actually fake. To prove that it's 100% fake, it's not easy, because mainly different news contain partially manipulative content on manipulative things that we think that is fake, but it's not easy to prove that it's 100% fake. And when we speak about the emotional content, our model has 92% of the accuracy of the emotional content. Maybe you have any questions or?
Okay, I think the manipulation is mostly about influence to auditorium related. Okay, maybe switch to the Lukasz, some. Andrzej, question, okay.
Oh, okay. Well, the first one, yes.
To Anastasia, you have a microphone.
Maybe just lack of. Do we know what's behind? Can you name the most typical negative, big manipulative news? Okay, when I speak.
This is a question for another, to Anastasia, no, not for you.
Yes, a lot of questions. So first, how do we ensure the speed of interaction? We do not ensure it at all. So we are forming the community of people who want to collaborate with journalists on one side, and the other community is journalists who want to ask questions. So it's self-regulated. Journalist asks questions, and sometimes nobody answers. Sometimes the journalist receives up to 40 or 50 answers, and he chooses the best ones. And sometimes it all depends on how much time the expert has. But when question or query is formed, it is sent to the whole base of experts who have subscribed to a certain category. For instance, to politics subscribed 400 people, to law 500, and somebody out of these 500 will have the time to answer and to meet your deadline and quality requirements.
Okay, expert work in the voluntary basis, but you can use some rating. Also, it's good tools. If you use some rating, is some validations. If you don't have money to pay, you can use some ratings.
Yes, we do not pay experts, and journalists do not pay experts, and also experts do not pay journalists. It's based on informational interest. So a journalist wants information, expert wants publicity for himself or for his organization or for herself, yes? And that's how it works. Sometimes the journalist posts a query and nobody responds. It's also quite an unexpected situation, and if you want more queries, you should pick more categories. For instance, if it's about land reform, then should be agro marked as a pertaining category, business, law, probably, yes, and this is how you increase the number of people who see this query. And then those people who know the answer, they just write and you pick. And also there is a question about who is responsible for the mistakes. So experts, they provide information that they have. It is the responsibility of the journalist to evaluate. Is this expert an objective person or not? Is he independent or not? Or can his data be trusted? can he cite, can he show the link to appropriate law? Can he show the probably scientific research that he cites in his commentary? And then it's the job of the journalist to double check and see whether this person is trustworthy. And this is the claim that we make, and we hope that everyone understands this. But I should say that usually most of the journalists are very professional, and they are asking, why are you claiming this? So can you at least show me your degree, or where did you work? Show me the link to your Facebook page, to your LinkedIn profile. And most of the people are quite well educated and well informed in how to do their job. So yes, we are happy with
sometimes question is very hard, and journalists expect a lot of work from expert.
Yes, yes. Sometimes
Okay,
it's
do you have some another question?
There is obviously low level. What does ML stands for, Anjay? Anjay, can you hear me?
Yes, you can read it from the comments. Okay, Colin.
Yeah, but what does ML stands for? This one, the currency. There is obviously low level of ML in Ukraine is most countries.
It's media literacy, I think.
Media literacy, yeah. So there is obviously low level of media literacy in Ukraine and in most countries. What are the key reasons for that?
I didn't evaluate reasons, but I see the problem, and now my task to solve this problem. And I know that, for example, in Canada or in the USA, the questions of media literacy has been started investigating since 50s, and we have started to work with topic media literacy only after 2014. So maybe that's the main explanation, but I don't know, I didn't investigate, but I know that we have such a situation, and we should to improve it and to implement courses on media literacy for students, for babushkas, for officials, because it's really very important.
Yeah, I think this reflects also this one, the last question. Do you have any other questions or comments, Anjay or Lukasz?
Maybe a little comment that I think the media literacy is also a really underestimated solution to fake news and disinformation in general, because even the best systems will not replace common sense and people thinking on what they're sharing. And especially if we have systems which are propagating information in a private way, like WhatsApp. WhatsApp doesn't surface to the public level. It's exchanged between friends, so it's much harder to control what kind of content is disseminated, right? If we have Facebook, okay, there can be system in place, whether artificial, semi-artificial, or human moderated, where some news can be debunked and flagged as fake or malicious. But if we have this phenomena, which is more and more common, where people send information on WhatsApp, this is beyond the control, right? And even yesterday I got something from my mom on coronavirus, which is total fake news, and I saw it immediately. But you know, people send it all around the world. So the only way to battle this is media literacy. And to have, at least if you are not sure, have a protocol or a kind of best practice how to check a few basic steps, how to check whether something is fake or not. And I think, yeah, education is definitely a way to go. And that also showed somehow in our reports. And interestingly enough, there is support from main players, again, like social media giants like Facebook, to actually support literacy efforts. But I think that has to be more streamlined with governments and European policy to ensure that this is in curricula of the schools as a kind of sign of supporting the modern information-driven society. Thank you.
Yeah, please, Anjay.
Okay, can I just wondering, you know, because I think there can be reached different levels of media literacy, especially digital media literacy. Like now we have different levels of developed and less developed countries. You know, in the past we used to have two types, developed and less developed countries. But now we have four categories, and I think also this is related to media literacy. We cannot reach really the 90% level of media literacy among any public. So the question is what to do with these results, basically, which can be expected. Like we have this curve, you know, like population IQ, so to say, or whatever. So my point is that we really can't trust in media literacy as the solution for all these fake news, hoaxes, or whatever. And so how would you see it from the Ukrainian perspective, basically? Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anna, any comments do you want to do or no?
It was like a question.
Okay. I hope we can thank you for hard work to the lunch, and our colleague from Compact. I hope we have possibility to meet offline, not only online. We don't have any problem with coronavirus. All will be health and no problem. And now we have networking lunch. We can discussion about this matter, and we continue at 2 o'clock in Ukrainian language. We also give some summarize on our event we have some newcomer, and also Mikita Puturayu sent me SMS. He is author of project of law about media regulation, and we are open to discussion about media regulation. I hope we have very good possibility to have discussion in the after the lunch, and we have summary of our discussion. We can prepare to the minute of our workshop, and we send to our colleague in consortium of Compact. I think you understand. In Europe, don't have common legislation. You send some practice different country, and Ukraine case is very interesting for our colleague from Compact project, and we try to prepare some material, and your questionnaire is very important for have feedback with this event. We propose to fill this questionnaire, and we also disseminate this question after the lunch to have possibility to obtain answer by online manner. Okay? Okay. Now we interrupt the translation, and we're going to drink coffee. Okay. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you very much, and have a good lunch. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yes, so we will, the second part will be in Ukrainian language, and we will have the discussion, and I will prepare the summary and key ideas. The member of parliament that's responsible for new media legislation will join the discussion, and I think it will be like fruitful results from that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ole. So, Ole, you don't think there will be a use for us to join conversation later? It will be all in Ukrainian, right?
Yeah, I think it will be in Ukrainian. There is.
Okay. Okay, so we finish here on our side, basically.
Sorry, 1 moment. I will switch the audio.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I'm just saying that the 1 hour side we are finishing here, right?
Yeah. We'll keep